I still have no explanation for the events that took place in my old Chicago apartment when I was around 10 years old. My sister was 7 at the time and had a very vivid imagination just like myself. I didn't always get along with my sister, and we got into little tiffs with each other a lot. One day she told me she'd made a new friend who lived across the street and her name was Samantha. I didn't believe her because, well, 1, we were always together usually, and 2, my parents only ever let us play in our fenced yard. There was no way she had time to meet this neighbor, unless of course it was a school friend, which she was not. This went on for a while. My sister would talk about how she and Samantha played all day and talked about funny things. I would give my sister crap and tell her she was a liar and she didn't have any friends. I was kind of a bully of an older sister, but I just didn't believe in the whole imaginary friend thing. I tried to tell my mum about it, but she just assumed my sister was playing around with me and making jokes. One day, when we were playing together in our shared bedroom, I asked her if Samantha could come over and play with us too. She said Samantha couldn't play today for whatever reason, and I laughed at her. I said that's because Samantha isn't real. She gave me side-eye and said yes, she is. I laughed again and said no, she's not. My sister said if I kept talking bad about her friend, something would happen. I just kept laughing. Then my sister got this nasty look on her face, filled with rage, and said, "Samantha says she's going to get you." I immediately ran to my mum's room and cried to her that my sister was scaring me. She scolded my sister and told us to behave, but it really struck fear in me the way she had said it. Things got really weird after that. I had a Toy Story Jessie doll that would sit on my windowsill with my other dolls. It was late at night. I couldn't sleep for some reason. I just kept staring at the doll. After what felt like a long while, the doll slowly started to rotate its head to look at me. I rubbed my eyes quickly and blinked hard. The doll's head was right back, looking forward like it was before. It sent shivers up my spine. I can still picture it to this day, exactly how it happened. The next day I was alone in our room watching a movie on the TV. I used to put my legs under the bed while laying on my stomach so I could play smack my feet on the outer edge of the frame, just silly kid stuff, when all of a sudden what felt like a fingertip dragged from the top of my heel down to my toes. I didn't look back, just bolted up and ran to my mom. She came looking under the bed in my room and told me to quit playing around. I started crying and I pleaded with my mom that it was Samantha. My mom brushed it off and just told me again to behave myself. The following week passed and no new things happened. My sister and I were playing Barbies and she started laughing out of nowhere. I asked her what was so funny and she said, "Samantha got you, huh?" To this day, my sister swears up and down she doesn't remember any of it and she has no idea who Samantha is. But I'll always remember. You may have seen my boyfriend's story about the mushroom tunnels, but I have my own unique story. It all started when I was about 9 years old. At the time, I attended a small Christian school with fewer than 100 students across 10-year levels. For our annual school camp, years 4 to 6, we went to a sport and recreation center for 2 nights. I was excited but nervous. This was 4 hours from home, and I had never been away from my mum without an older relative. Thankfully, my sister, just a year older than me, was also attending. When we arrived and unpacked, I felt an unfamiliar sensation in my chest. After lunch, we socialized with students from other schools. That evening, after dinner and night games, we returned to our cabins, which were more secluded than the other students' accommodations. All the girls in my cabin talked about how the place felt eerie. When the lights went out, I saw a tall shadow in the doorway. Terrified, I moved to another girl's bed in the next section. I eventually fell asleep until I woke to a woman's voice calling for Max and Luke, reassuring them it was safe to come home. I barely slept after that. The next night, we left our cabin tidy before heading to the gym for night games. When we returned, everything was trashed, items thrown around, lights on, nothing as we left it. Suddenly, screams rang out, "Demon! It's a demon!" followed by crying. Teachers rushed in to console us. No one slept that night. On the bus ride home, I was filled with fear and curiosity. What had we encountered? Even weeks later, I felt uneasy. Then, small things started happening at home. A door rattling with no draft, footsteps when no one was awake. Soon it escalated. My family, believers and skeptics alike, witnessed unexplainable events. We heard children running up and down the stairs, and twice a clock jumped off the wall at my mother. My guitar strummed itself, but the worst part, whatever it was, it focused on me. My bedroom was downstairs near the front door. I heard tapping on my windows, scratching on the walls, footsteps on the gravel outside, where no one could have been. Banging on the front door would wake me in the middle of the night, but the sleep paralysis was the worst. I woke between 3 and 4 a.m. every night, unable to move, often feeling a presence sitting on my bed. One morning I found my door unlocked and wide open, though I hadn't touched it. At age 11 we moved. Everything seemed fine at first. But in our new home, strange things continued. My sister's bathroom was connected to my room. I would see one of them enter, but never leave. I heard the shower run, but no one was there. When I asked, they said they hadn't even been in the room. After moving again, all activity stopped. Years later, curiosity led me to research the sport and rec. What I found was shocking. It had once been a home for misbehaved boys where they were beaten, some possibly to death. My cabin? It had been the punishment room. Others who visited reported similar terrifying experiences. I still wonder why I formed an attachment and what it wanted from me. But it explains my lifelong fascination with the paranormal. Someone was breathing down my face while everyone was asleep. This happened when I was 12, in my bedroom, well, my siblings' bedroom. I shared a bedroom for a bit with my sisters. As of late, I only share my bedroom with one of my sisters, but let me get straight to the point. It was on a night when my brother was sleeping with us. He was sleeping on the floor, while the rest of my sisters and me were sleeping on different beds. I remember it so clearly. I was trying to sleep, but my energy was stacked, and oh boy, was it obvious. I would turn and flip. I genuinely looked like how cartoons portrayed someone trying to sleep. It was ridiculous. At one point, I told myself I would close my eyes and won't open them, ever. I was committed and closed my eyes. Something that I should have told you earlier is that I would hear sounds every time I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. They weren't creepy or anything. They just sounded like sounds from a dream, but there was no visuals. Thinking about it now, I must have been dreaming, but just didn't see anything. Anyway, when I closed my eyes, something happened shortly after. I remember hearing someone walking away from inside the room. For context, the door was wide open, so it wouldn't cause much noise to leave the room. I assumed it was just my brother and didn't open my eyes. Soon the footsteps returned and I could tell they stopped right by the door inside the room. I still didn't open my eyes, assuming it was just my brother. Suddenly the footsteps came rushing as in running quite fast towards me. Then it breathed down on my face. I was startled and was breathing fast despite my thoughts telling me to pretend like I was asleep, so the person would assume I was indeed sleeping. The person breathed on me for a bit before the breathing sound faded away. Only after did I open my eyes, assuming I would find my brother in front of me. But lo and behold, he was still asleep on the ground. To this day, I know I must have been hallucinating. I was tired and was hearing things due to it. Clearly, I just needed some sleep. But this situation stuck with me to this day, despite years have passed since. This is a creepy true Thanksgiving story. This is a story told to me by my roommate. It happened 3 years ago in 2022. It was the week of Thanksgiving, and my daughter's boyfriend had invited me and my daughters over to his family's house in Connecticut to spend Thanksgiving there. There wasn't much space in the house, so me and my daughters had to stay in the basement. The only people who lived in the house besides my daughter's boyfriend were his grandmother, his sister, and her husband. A few more family members were supposed to be staying over as well, but since we came late that night, I didn't get to meet any of them. We stayed the first night in the house, and it was finally the morning of Thanksgiving. I normally wake up pretty early, so I was up by 7 a.m. I was the only one awake in the house. Or I went upstairs to the kitchen and sat on a high chair. I sat for a bit just drinking some coffee and relaxing before the day began. As I was drinking my coffee, I saw a cute little boy coming downstairs. He was in his pajamas and came downstairs to the fridge to get something to drink. I smiled at him and watched him go back upstairs. I remember thinking about how adorable he was. Well, later that day, everyone got ready and went into the kitchen and living room as we began our Thanksgiving celebration. Everybody was together having a great time, and that's when I decided to ask out loud, "Hey, where's the cute little boy that I saw earlier this morning?" I was instantly pulled aside by the grandma. She looked at me in shock and said, "Shh, careful my daughter doesn't hear you. Her son died in front of this house a few years ago. He got hit by a car. I see him too sometimes, but nobody believes me." My heart instantly dropped. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. After hearing that, I couldn't help but have a weird feeling the rest of the time I was in that house. Later that night, my daughter and her boyfriend went upstairs to get some yogurt from the fridge. She specifically remembered grabbing a strawberry yogurt and putting back a banana yogurt she had grabbed. As they headed back downstairs to the basement, their hearts dropped as they noticed that the banana yogurt was placed on their bed. We felt super uneasy after this. Thankfully, we ended up going home the next day. But I'll never forget how crazy these 2 days were. Hopefully, we won't have to go back anytime soon.